Hello there. Kristen Cooper here, financial educator as well as senior loan officer. Today, I want to provide content regarding guilt. Do you feel guilty when you buy things? If so, why? So, today I want to talk about guilt. And guilt, I'm going to read the definition here because I think it's important that we understand. Guilt is the fact or state of having committed an offense, crime, violation, or wrong, especially against moral or penal law, such as he admitted his guilt. So guilt comes from doing something wrong. So that means if we're feeling guilty, it's because we feel that we're doing something wrong, which means that our belief of what we should be doing is not matching what we want to do or what we're doing. So I want to first talk about why we feel guilt when we buy something. Typically, it's because you're buying something when you know you shouldn't, and the reason that you believe you shouldn't is because you don't have the money for it. Whether it be you don't have enough income, whether it be you don't have enough savings, or whether it be you have a lot of debt, and you really know that you shouldn't be buying or making this purchase. So you got to step back and look at the belief. What's the belief? Why do you believe that you shouldn't make this purchase? Because that's really what it is of why you're feeling the guilt. And the belief is because maybe you were raised that you should never carry debt, or maybe you're raised that you have to have so much money in savings before you make purchases. So really step back and believe, is this what I believe, or is this just what I grew up believing? Because a lot of times when you're unhappy about something, it's because your blueprint doesn't match your current conditions, meaning that what your beliefs are doesn't match what you're currently doing. So you got to really evaluate your beliefs. Do you really believe that you should have so much money in savings before you buy something? Or do you feel that someone's going to be upset because you buy something and you don't have so much in savings? Really get true to how your core is and what you believe. Become very aware of how you feel about your relationship with money so that you can understand how to move forward. But let's just say that it's just a normal belief and you believe that you should pay off all your debt before you make a purchase, which I completely agree with. That's my belief, is that I shouldn't buy anything going forward that I don't need if I had credit card debt. And so really it's understanding that if that's your belief, well, then you need to change your conditions. So you need to understand that if your desire is to buy things, or if your desire is to pay off debt, then you need to understand that you need to change what your current plan is so that you can do that, so that you don't feel guilty anymore moving forward when you make purchases or when you do things. So you got to choose to own it. I mean, really, that's the bottom line, is you got to own it. You got to own where you're at and how you're going to get there. And until you do that, you're living in the dark. You're not living in reality. You're living on false beliefs or should haves or I can'ts, and that's not the reality of it. The reality of it is we can be and do whatever we want, and we can get to wherever we want to be if you have enough dedication and insight and self-awareness. And so I really want you to consider, when you're buying something, is it because you believe that you need to pay off your debt first? Do you really believe it? If so, create a plan and pay off your debt. Because if you don't, guess what? You're going to live the rest of your life feeling guilty every time you need to make a purchase, and you're never going to advance and you're never going to move forward. You just got to own it. You got to decide, how do I want to move forward? First step is understanding first, where am I? So what kind of debt do I currently have? So do I have good debt? Do I have bad debt? What's good debt? Good debt is owning a home or paying for college that is now giving you income, anything that's going to provide value for your future. What's bad debt? Bad debt is everything that you've purchased or paid for that doesn't bring any value and or that you're paying interest on. So let's say that it's a credit card and you bought things that you really didn't need, you just wanted at the time. And so now you're paying $30 to several $100s a month in just interest. The interest is the portion the bank is taking just for you to hold that money there. So you owe them $10,000 and you're paying them a payment every month, and most of that is just going to how much you owe them just for borrowing the money. It's not even paying down the balance. So maybe that $1,000 item that you bought, by the time you're done buying it, guess what? Now you paid $2,500 for that item. If you would have saw that item there for $2,500, would you have bought it? Probably not. It's just being aware of what you're spending money on and what type of debt is. So now if it's bad debt that you have and you understand that you need to pay that off and you desire to pay that off, then you just got to suck it up and you got to kind of step back and say, you know what, for a little while, I'm not going to spend on other things. I'm going to really focus on paying off this debt and figure out a plan on how to pay it off. But you got to understand where you are first. So what you want to do first is you want to create an income expense form. So income and expenses form. So what you want to do is just use Excel, create a spreadsheet. At the top of the spreadsheet, you're going to put who the creditor is, who you have to pay, when it's due, how much you owe, and what the current interest rate is, and what the minimum payment is. So you're going to put down all of your cards. So let's say it's credit cards, yo. Then you're also going to put down every other expense you have. So you're going to put down any auto loans that you have, any mortgage payment, rent payment, insurance, cell phone, any expenses that you have outgoing, you're going to include on this form. And that way you could see what are all the items that I have outgoing right now. Now I want you to include everything that you have outgoing currently. And then I want you to go back and I want you to put a check mark next to the items that are not needed. So of course you're going to need health insurance, you're going to need your rent, you're going to need your food, you're going to need your credit card payments, you're going to need your auto loans. Now, other items that you may not need, you're going to put a little check mark on that if there is any. There may not even be any, but maybe it's Hulu, maybe it's Netflix, maybe it's a subscription to something else that you have that you don't necessarily need. Now you enjoy it, but you don't necessarily need it. So you're going to write those down. And then you're going to write down all the income you have coming in. So every month, how much income net, meaning after your taxes, how much income do you have coming in? Now I want you to take those two and I want you to line it, your income versus your expenses. How much money do you have left over? What you're going to do is create a plan that you take all the money that you have left over for items that you don't need, and then you're going to itemize where you're going to put that money. Now, you may take a portion of it, and I always say pay yourself. So find a little portion of the money, depending on where you're at and how much debt you have to pay off, and put that towards something that you want. So if you have $300, left over a month, and that's what you're working with, and you have a $50 subscription to something you don't necessarily need, you may want to cancel it for a little while. Now, if you have $300 a month and you have a Netflix account for $9 a month and that makes you happy, keep the Netflix account. Or put $25 a month or $50 a month into a separate account, and that's what you use for your coffee or your going out that you're going to use for the month. I think you have to have something that's going to make you feel like you're working towards something, but you need to minimize it. You need to regulate it and you need to track it. You can't be spending hundreds of dollars and go into the negative on things that you don't need if you want to move forward in your life, if you want to get rid of the guilt. If that's the direction that you're choosing, you really need to define it. You need to understand where you are so that you can get past it. The bottom line is you just need to own it. You need to own it and you need to follow it. You need to take massive action to changing it, or it's going to always continue to be the same. I'm going to include in here on the bottom the steps of what you can do to start that process. I promise you, if you take time to sit down and do this, not only are you going to feel confident in your abilities moving forward in this life, you're going to have a compelling future. And that, my friend, will make you happy.